All right, welcome back to the next part of this video series. Sorry, the last couple of videos have been kind of long, but trying to get a lot accomplished. And I'm also apologizing for, in the last video, I was a little bit under the weather, and so it was a little bit of start and stop, and I made a few bugs and a few errors. And I want to resolve those today and push forward with the next part of our agenda. All right, so let's start with a bug. One thing I noticed was when we wrote the code in the note class to check to see, based on that type, it was by title. This had said by title, and now I've switched that to by date. That's why the date portion wasn't working when I tested it yesterday. But let's test it today. So here you see those things we saved yesterday. I'm going to search the notes by date this time. You notice the dates were just letters. So I'm just going to put in the letter D as the date. And there it found that one. Now I'm also going to search by date for the letter K, and there are two with the date K, and there are the two of them. So that has fixed that little bug in the code. All right, so that means that the equals part is completed. Let's also update, we didn't get a chance to update, that has now been added on the last time. So we added visual features, we did the icons and stuff like that. That was definitely happening. We added the ability to search the database. Okay, so that was an important feature added on that day. Was searching the database was an option now added. It's a feature, okay? From a testing standpoint, did we document that that would be the test? No, we haven't. So I'm going to add that in as a possible testing. Can we search by title and date? And does it return all the resulting notes that match the search criteria? Like, we tested that. Did it just find the one, or did it find all of them? And it did find all of them, so that's good. Okay, I guess I can incorporate into that now that as well, that the way we did that search, the way we wrote it in, that search was implemented through built-in methods of the linked list class. We didn't write a separate search for this. We just used something that was built right into our linked list class, which is again why I'm recommending using the linked list class we develop in class in Computer Science 40S, or if you're in the IB course, and certainly in 42 SIB, because now it can count as your linked list, not one that we just import from the Java util library, okay? We can use our own linked list class that we developed. Yeah, it's very much like the one from the utility library. That's on purpose. Okay, so now here we are, April 1st, April Fool, April 1st of 2022. What's the goal for today? The goal for today is to add sorting as a feature. That's what's kind of on the docket to do today. And if we look through our code, the way that would be incorporated was it's still sitting in the notes class down here, that sorting is on our to-do, right? Yesterday we implemented all the database feature, or sorry, the permanent file features. That's awesome. And we implemented the searching feature. Today it's the sorting. However, before we get to that, let's clean up some of this code from search. This is kind of the part yesterday where I was a little bit stunted in how I wrote it. So some of it's still good, right? The indices, but let's put some commentary to this, right? This is an array for all index values that match up with what we are searching for. That's what that array is for, okay? Options to show the user. That's what that array is for, that final array, okay? Then we get the user's option. Get the search type from the user. Okay, so that's what that's for. And then we start an if statement. Now, what I want to do is just sort of change the order of the if statement. I'm going to put if choice, right? Like if they don't choose option 0 or option 1, then the choice is going to be a null, or the choice dot equals essentially nothing. If those are what they choose in that dialog box, then that's essentially what we had down here for returning. So I'm going to take the return statement out of here and the else statement, remove the else statement, and shift this up to higher in the sort of order here. So let's just document that. User canceled. So leave the method early. There. That sort of identifies what's going on here. Now I can change this into an else if. Okay, so if it wasn't a null, then what if they chose option 0, which was to search by title? Then I enter the title to search for. Then what's this line for? I set the shared global type. That was a solution idea that if we go back to data structures, that we created this variable type right here. And the reason for type, the reason for that global variable type was so that it could be stored across classes. So we could check it when we get to the note class. Which type of search are we doing? It's also going to come in handy today when we do sorting. Which type of sorting? Okay. So this is the global search / sort type for the note, right? That's what that's for. Okay. Okay, so now that we have that, and here were the two set types, by title, by date. All right, so we set the type, okay, create a temporary note from the user data. So that's what we're doing. We're saying here's a note. We're only going to need to worry about the title, okay. Then we search the list. Okay, and some of this commenting could be inline, so I'm just going to shift this over to here. It takes a little bit less space up in our actual line-by-line stuff. So we search the list, okay. If the indexes equal null, what that's going to mean is no or nothing found. Right? If the array comes back with nothing in it, then there was no place in the linked list where it matched our search, right? No notes with the title are in the database. And once again, we leave early, right? Now, do we really need to do that? Well, because of what's coming up later in the code, yes, because we're going to display our results otherwise. So I'm going to say that the reason for this is to leave the method early. Just to comment on what we did yesterday. All right. Now, the same exact logic happens here, right? So I don't think I need to re-comment all that. It's the same logic. Maybe I'll just put that in as a comment. Same logic for date. Okay. And then for the rest of this, then let's put some inline comments for this, right? So what's happening right here? Okay. We clear out the list box. That's what we did there. We traverse all search indices, all the search data. I'll just put that so it fits on the line there. Okay. Get the found note and add to the list box. We do that. So that's assuming that we found something in the list. We did all that. And we've already tested this code. We know it works. So there's our search method. It is a longer method. So I want to put a little commentary in it to kind of clear up exactly what it was doing there. All right. So let's focus on sorting today. For sorting, what I'm going to suggest we do is we use another one of our classes that we imported back in one of the earlier videos. And this is in the tools package. So if we look in tools, there is a sort class, okay? And it's literally written up. It's a useful method for sorting arrays and linked lists of generic data. So we have a linked list of notes, so this is going to work well. However, for this to work, it needs something called the comparable interface, so that when it compares things, it knows one is less than or greater than, so that it can sort it. So this will also need to be something we will need to add to the note class. So our note class can use something just like it used equals for searching. We're going to now not only implement serializable, comma, but comparable. We're going to compare one note with another note. So this will force us to create an abstract method into a concrete method, and that method is compare to. How we can compare one note to another note. Okay? So we're going to compare that note to this note. So compare them back and forth. So how are we going to compare two notes? Well, it depends what type of comparison we're doing. So here again, this little if statement will be very handy. The same one we did in equals, we'll do in here. Okay, now it won't be this line, right? We won't be returning a true false. We'll be returning an integer for comparing. So I'll just sort of take a look at that in a second. Now, what does compare to really mean? Well, the compare to, which overrides, okay? If we looked at what compare to does, right? We could use, for example, the string class, because it has built into the string itself. So I'll just show you. Compare to compares two strings lexicographically. So I'm going to steal a little bit of this commentary, because this is what string class does for its commentary here. And there's quite a bit before it gets to parameters. So anyways, I'm just going to copy this. I'll just place it into a text file here. Okay, so compares two strings lexicographically. So I'm just going to do a find and replace. Find strings, replace with note, right? So I'm going to replace the word string with the word note and replace them all. Okay. Compares two notes lexicographically based on the value of each character in the note. Okay, so the idea with this is it's going to give you a number back. If the number is 0, they're equal. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So if the number, like, let me show you. Like, let's make a string X and a string Y. And let's give them two values. So I'm going to make X 10 and I'm going to make Y 1. So if I compare to, right? If X dot compare to Y equals 0, that means that they are equal, right? So that X and Y are equal values. Now, two strings, this is numbers, right? 10 and 1 are not equal, but are A and A equal? That would be a good sort of scenario there. And actually, let me just quickly copy this code instead of putting it right here. Let me just make a quick test program. And I'm just going to put that code over into there. So we can grab an idea what's happening here with compare to. And again, I'm trying to simulate what might happen if you were a student trying to figure out how to do this idea, right? You might make a temporary little project, place in there this, and then output that they are equal, right? But what if when I take X compared to Y, they're not equal to 0, but they're less than 0. So I'll just say less than. And then what if I use the exact same logic and switch my less than symbol to obviously a greater than symbol? Okay, so these are strings, right? So let me output what they are, right? So x equal to y, right? Or is x less than y? Okay, or is x greater than y? Okay, so let's just run this little test code and see what happens. A is equal to A. That makes sense, right? There were two letters, A and A. Now, if I change the letters into numbers, 10 and 10, that makes more sense because when we think of less than, greater than, or equal to, we tend to think in terms of numbers. But now, what if I make this one a 1, not a 10? Whoops. So we have 10 and 1. So 10 is greater than 1. Okay, that makes sense. I'll make this one a 1 and this one a 10. 1 is less than 10. Okay, but now let's put them in terms of letters. How about A and Z? Let's see what happens there. A is less than Z. Oh, okay. So then if I made this one a B and this one an A, would B be greater than A? Yes, it is. Okay. Now let's shift it up to actual words like the and that. How would it compare them? The is greater than that, right? So it's using, that's what's called that lexicographical comparison, right? So that gives us some clues how we can now write that in here. So if we're searching by title, then it's the two titles that we want to have, right? We have a note and we have this note, right? The same way we did equals to here. We now can just compare them by title. So really we could use essentially this exact same line of code we did up here, right here. But instead of equals ignore case, we're going to use compare to. We're going to compare the two titles. Okay, and similarly right here by date, in theory we're going to compare the two dates. And we need a sort of default scenario here as well, just like we did here when we return false. So for this one, I'm just going to return 0, assuming they're equal at that point, which is potentially how we could do that, right? Now, we would need some sort of commentary for this. That is the note object to compare to. Right? That's what it's for. We're comparing one note to another note. What are we returning? If the notes are equal, we'll return 0, or the past note is less than this note. Okay, so what will we return in that case? Well, if it's less than this note, what we return, okay, as we saw back here, like we're comparing to that, wait a minute, how are we doing it? We're doing this note, yeah, so the past note is y, so then we would return a number less than 0, okay? We return a number less than 0 or greater than. And if that's the case, we return a number greater than 0. That's how it's going to work, right? This is a comparison of the two notes, two note objects, to determine less than, greater than, or equals. In a way, this means we could have actually eliminated the equals method and just used compare to, but we kind of needed the equals method because the linked list used that method. But now our note class, right, has the comparable to allow two notes to be compared to each other. This will be useful because that's what the sorting class is going to expect. Okay, so now we're about to sort our notes. Well, it depends now, like we did with searching, which way we want to do that. So I'm going to steal a little bit of this code right here. I'm going to steal the options to show the user, put them into sort, and instead of search by title, I'm going to switch that to sort by title or sort by date. Okay, which type of, or maybe I'll put it this way, how should I sort a list? Right, should I sort it by date or by title? Provide those options to the user so the user sees the different options. Okay, get the sort type from the user. Okay, so let's scroll up. And I realize now I had a typo there. All right, now I would have the same if-else kind of thing happening. So I'm going to steal a little bit of that code. If the user doesn't choose anything and they cancel, I'll leave early. Otherwise, now it's going to be that choice or this choice right here. So choice 0 or choice 1. All right. So in a similar fashion to the way I did before, I don't have to ask the user for more information like I did with searching, but I do have to set the type, right? I have to set it by title or by date. So that will also still happen. So down here, set it by title or set it by date. There, make sure those are correct, right? Sort by title, sort by date. Now I need to implement that sorting option. So I think this is, again, something I'm going to put back here in the data structures class. So just like I had notes, just like I had type, just like I had a file handler, I'm going to make a public static sort. I'll call it sorter to do the sorting, right? Now, where will I get the sort class from? Well, I'll import it from the tools package. Now I need to construct a sort object. So I'm going to do it right here. So sorter equals new sort object. And what do I have for constructors? Just the default constructor. It's the only way to create a sort option, right? So if I look at this sort class, I just construct it, and then I can use the various methods within it to do sorting. And I got a bunch. I got a bunch of different sort options to work with. Okay, so now what I can do is go to data structures, dot, sorter, dot. So I could do the bubble sort or various other sorts that are in here, and there's ones for arrays and linked lists. So I'm going to use maybe the quick sort here, because it literally is called quick, on my list. The list, which is a global property of notes, right? It's a linked list of note objects. And in theory, that could be all I'd need to do is sort that list. Okay. And really, I'd be doing that whether I'm doing this one or this one. So that line of logic could be actually implemented outside of the else if statement. Okay, but then once the list is sorted, very much like when the list had been searched, I'm going to need to, once again, the same logic I did up here, update that list box with the new list. Okay, but it's going to be a little bit different than this, so I'm not going to use this exact code, but some of it will be the same. I'll remove everything from the list box, but now I'm going to go through not a bunch of indices, but my list dot size. Go traverse the list, the new list, because it's newly sorted. I have room for that? I don't have room, but I like that. Traverse newly sorted. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just get spot I. I'm not going to an indices. I'm going to spot I, every place in this new list. Get the not found note, but just get that note and add it to the list box. Well, time for a test. Let's see if this is ready for action. Well, we kind of wiped out the list, but that's okay because I want to make some notes. Okay, so walks note, March 29th, 2022. This is a test. Okay, so that's in there. Sally, March 28th, 2022. Oops. Another test. Now I want to make like someone who's a title that starts with a Z, right? Z. June 1st, 2022. Or testing with Spellows. And Alfred. That's an A name, right? So I like that idea. January 1st, 1979. This is an old note before the program was even created. And to make one a little bit closer, to have a duplicate in there, I want to put another walks in there. Okay, April 1st, 2022. You fool. Okay, so we got all that. I'm going to close it down and start it back up again, just to make sure that we don't have an actual database problem that I was unaware of. There it is. All good. All right, time to do a sort by title. Oh my goodness. Alfred Sally Walks Z. That's alphabetically in order. The sorting kind of worked. Now, if I click display all notes there, it's now an altered list, right? It's actually been put into that order. Sort by date. Oh, look at that. Now, the date obviously is doing it alphabetically, so April's coming before January. That could be written in as something more to fix, but it does actually work. It does exactly what we wanted it to do. It did the sorting. That's exciting. That was a feature to be added, and now it has been added. The sorting feature has been added. Okay, we should put that into our testing plan that we did that. So I'm going to say add sorting as a feature, both by date or by title and date. Okay, now what does that address? Now, what criteria are we addressing here? Well, we are addressing now some success criteria 1B and 1C. So let me update this. We actually addressed 1D, and here we're addressing 1C, right? Let me just double check that order. 1C, 1B is supposed to be in the second one, and 1C, I put them in the wrong order. This is 1C, and this is 1B. Let me split screen this with the other one just to make sure. Okay. So 1B, the user can sort all the notes. So that's what we addressed today. So today we addressed 1B. Yesterday we addressed 1C by searching. Okay? But there is one other thing we actually had in our success criteria. Search by date, by title, or even just text. We don't have that as a search option. So we could scrap it. But I would like to add here to 1B that we actually met all best case criteria. And if I'm going to write that in, then I'm going to say that we're going to added the feature of searching by text. We want to do that. Okay, and then finalize all features, completing the program development. In other words, we're done if we can get this last feature implemented to actually search by text. So other than that, we've got everything done and commented. All of our code is commented, all done, but it's back in search to add one more option for searching, which means if we look at kind of our data structures class, which we have now all this cool stuff in there, we would add one more feature to this. And I think this might also be a good way to add one more little comment to our data structures class of all these global things. These are private, encapsulated constants for this class, right? They're only within the class that it knows about these things. These ones are public, obviously. Properties for all the classes to share. That's why we made them static. These are also shared properties for other classes to use, because obviously they're going to use data files and icons, and they're going to use all that stuff, right? Now, could I put a little more like I did down here, inline commenting for each one? Sure, I certainly could, right? I could be more specific about what all these things are for, but I think that's probably more than enough commentary for this. Probably overdoing it, and I feel the end in sight, so I kind of want to get there. But let's add one more of these. A number 3 option that we could, this wouldn't be for sorting, but it would be for searching, that we could search by text. Now let's jump back to the notes class. Let's add a third option up here, so search by date, and just search by text as a third option. So now we can add another else if. Okay, this would be option 2, search by text. So let's build it the way we did this one up here, kind of the same idea, same logic, but for text. Okay, enter the text to search for. This would not be by date, but by text. Now, this would be just text, and this would be a null. This would be the text. Okay, we would get all the indices, no notes with the text. Are in the database, and we would return. Otherwise, we would do all that. So the rest of that would work, but it would now rely on us having a third option here for equals. So now we'd have to incorporate that. So let's do that. So now what we'd have is we'd have a by text option. Okay, so this is going to be a little trickier, right? Because we search by title, search by date. If we're searching by text, okay, is it going to be an exact match? Like, do they have to type exactly the right text in there? I don't want it to be that. So what I'm going to do is create 2 pieces of text. Text 1 comes from this note dot content. So the content of this note. Text 2 comes from that note content. Okay. Because built into strings, okay, is another way to search. And let's actually use an example of this, right? Let me so again, imagine you're a student and you want to, in Java, search a string for another string. What options do I have there? So it says there's a couple methods: contains, index of, last index of. These are things. So let's check maybe a Stack Overflow example here, right? So here you can see what this student introduced this idea. The cat is on the table. If I'm looking for that word within the text, how could I do that? And they're saying you could just use this contains method. Okay, so we got a potential idea. So does text1 contain text2? Right? And what does the contains method return? It returns yes or no, a Boolean. Well, wait a minute. A Boolean, yes or no, is that not exactly what equals is? Yes, it is. So in theory, could I just return that? That would be pretty cool if I could just do that. And that would get this final feature implemented, right? So to get that final feature implemented of searching by text. Okay, well, let's give it a whirl. First of all, let's take a look at some of our notes, right? So I'm going to display this note. That contains the word fool, right? Whereas this one contains the word note. This one, more to testing. But these last two, I believe, both contain the word test, right? Test in that one and test in that one. So if I search by text for the word test, it would give me the Sally and the walks notes. So I'm going to try to search by text for the word test. This is a big, and look at that. Those are the two notes that have the word, oh wait. Oh, that's not good. It's displaying the wrong note there. Okay, well, we've uncovered a bug. So I'm just going to pause this video for a second to not waste our time tracking that bug, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So that little bug we uncovered actually is not really a bug in our code. What it does, I'll just repeat that sort of, it's a little error we found, is that if you narrow what's on the screen right now, because right now I'm displaying all the notes, which is really cool, and I can still sort all the notes like we did before. So notice how Alfred with the letter A is first. But then if I search all the notes like I did a second ago by text for the word test, it reduces the list to just the ones that we want to display. But then when I go to display this one as a note, display that selected note, it goes back to Alfred. And the reason is it's still using the index number and the original list. So we have a couple options here. We could basically always match the list box with that. But I think a better way to do this, or certainly a more feasible way to do this, is we need to maybe disable some features on that user interface. I think that might be a good way to look at it, right? Like we have all these buttons on the user interface. Those buttons don't necessarily always need to be active. So to fix this bug, I'm going to go back to the start of the main user interface. And when we go and jump over to our controller, we took just the list box, but I think I want to take our buttons now with us over there. That way I can turn the buttons on or off. Now, maybe I don't need all the buttons though, right? Like if I think about it. But I think I will just for ease of use. So I have J button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 buttons, right? So I'm going to change this the way this controller works. So it displays list 1, and then what it's going to next bring up is J button 1, and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All 6 J buttons. So this now needs to get picked up by the controller. And I now need to also include private J button. And maybe here I'll give them more accurate names. There's the new note button. Right? So let's import J button. There's going to be 6 of them in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's actually look at the user interface to get a feel for what they are. So the new note button, the display all notes button. There is the display selected note button. There is the delete selected note button. And I believe the final 2 would be search and sort. So the search button and the sort button. Okay, so those would be our 6 buttons. So now, if I create a reference to those in the controller class, I can also use these as parameters. So I'm going to add them as to my parameter list here. Copy paste to speed things up a little bit. Oops, took the J out. Let's try that. I did that again. Two more. A tedious coding task, but maybe a necessary one. Okay, so now I have a reference to all the notes, or all the buttons, just like I had reference to the list box and the user interface itself. Okay, now I need to, as I said before, wire them up the same way I did the other one. So I'm going to have to add 6 lines of code like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for each of these button objects. So this button, equals this button equals this button, this button equals this button, this button equals this button. Search, search, sort, sort. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. So now I have a connection in my controller class to all those buttons as well. So now I can alter them. I can enable and disable them. And that'll just make it more of a ability to address that error specifically. Yeah, we'll write this into our documentation, into our kind of, it came up in the testing. So I wasn't actually expecting that. Hadn't thought it through, but now we have it. In real coding, this would be like an update, right? You'd have to send out this update because of this feature bug. All right, so there we go. So there's all our buttons now available to us. So what I want to do is write a method to shut them all down. So I'm just going to copy this for a second. And I'm just going to make this within the class itself, within my controller class. And actually, this can be actually a private method because it's only going to be used within this class. Private void buttons Boolean enabled. So yes or no, will they be enabled? And I'll make this not just called buttons, but a set all the buttons. So it's a set method. Okay. So in other words, this is a mutator method to set all the buttons enabled or not. that parameter is true to enable the buttons, false to disable. Okay, so that's what you pass this method, true or false. Now, do I need to do this to all the buttons, right? I don't think I need to do it to the new note button, so I'm going to leave that one out. So that one actually may not even have needed to be passed as a parameter. But instead, I'm going to do it to the other ones. So I'm going to do it to, for example, display note, all notes, display selected note. That's the one that we found the error in. Delete selected note, that would be the same thing. Sort and search. Now again, I may not need all these, but I have them available right now. And what I'm going to do is go dot set enabled to be enabled, right? Or so it'll be set true or set false. Copy that and paste that into all these. Okay, so let's call this method right at startup just to see that it's in fact working. Okay, so set buttons false is I'm going to put that right under display all notes, set buttons to be false. Let's see how that affects the user interface now. Okay, so there they are. They're all disabled. So all I could do is create a new note. Now I don't want to do that. Like this searching and sorting should be, I think, should be there. So I'm going to take those two lines. I'm just going to comment them out for now. Rerun it. We can imagine, okay. That would actually be useful if there was no notes. So we have that already written in there. We couldn't display all the notes if there is none. We couldn't display a selected note if there was none. We couldn't delete a selected note if there was one. But this would also be good once that search feature comes up, right? So one thing I think I could do is once I've done a sort, once a sort has been accomplished, then I can set them all to be true. So let me actually just go up to the sorting, right? So once I've sorted all those things, now I'm going to set those buttons to be true, right? Also, if I click to display all the buttons, right? So at any point, if I click display all the notes, then all your buttons are now an option, right? It's when I am doing the searching, that's when it's an issue. So maybe what I'll do is after searching, that's when I will set them to be false. Okay? And if you think about it, if I'm displaying all the notes and then setting them to true, okay, then I don't need this here, right? I don't need that there. But where I could put it is in display all notes right before I return. Is I could just say, you know what? There are no notes to be displayed here. So I'm just going to turn off, all the buttons. Let's see how that now looks. So I have all my buttons available. So if I want to, I can display a selected note. I can search all the notes. Okay, so I got the two titles. But now notice I can't display that selected note. I should be able to display them all, though. That I definitely want back, right? I can't display or delete those notes. I would have to display them all first before I can do that. I could do a sort, and then they come back. But I want that ability when I want to display them all to be an option. So I think I'm going to now just remove that and remove that, right? So really, those are the two buttons that were causing the problem, display and delete, okay? However, I still have a reference to all of them, okay? And so maybe I don't need them all. Maybe I just need the selected note button and the delete selected note button, okay? So those are buttons, if I go back to my user interface, 1, 2, maybe 3 and 4. Only really need 3 and 4. All right, let's make a change. Let's strip this down to just buttons 3 and 4. I don't need the other buttons. Let's strip down the controller. So that's really only the 2 that I need. Display selected and delete selected. Which means I can get rid of some of these lines and I can get rid of some of these global properties, right? I just need display selected and I just need delete selected. Okay, a lot less to worry about. All right. Get rid of the error lines now that aren't doing anything anymore. And this also reminds me that I've got a couple things to comment here. I need to comment in what this is, the button field for display note, the button field for delete a note. And why can't I ever spell the word field properly? I have an actual issue with that. It's one of those words that you just constantly misspell. That's one of mine, the word field. Okay, let's give it a whirl. Let's see if that bug has been averted now. So we had it all up and running and we discovered that late bug. So there's all our notes. We do a search by title, 4 walks. We get our search results. We no longer can display those notes because that was causing an issue, but we now have the 2 notes that we searched for. We can display all the notes, and then we can go back and display those specific notes. And all is well in the universe. All right, kids, that is the program. I do want to just real quickly, I just realized I do want to add in that last piece of documentation as well, though. So I'm just going to go back to Group A here. We now have met all best case scenario, okay? Testing resulted in changing some of the user experience, otherwise known as UX. So some buttons become enabled or disabled depending on search results. So we did that. That was something we added in there as part of that when we met that best case scenario. Okay, so our record of tasks is now up to that point. Our design overview, all good. Our testing plan, I'm going to now put the testing plan on its own page like I did in the other one. So I'm going to insert a line break here. There we go. Testing plan is now on its own page. Our word count is now bigger. It's now 637. So we added exactly 100 words today. Okay, so that's good. So this now leads us to where we go next, right? So this is a good chance for me to show you kind of what else needs to be done with this before we wrap up today. So I'm going to go now to the Computer Science IB page of my website. If you're watching this video late in the series, you can look in the first couple videos to see how to get here. And all the videos are now up, and this one will be up shortly. But I'm actually going to go to, because we look through the stuff we have available here. Playlist of videos, sample projects, that's all good. I'm actually going to go to our shared folder of documents and go to Other and go to the entire curriculum and scroll down to the internal assessment. So past this part of the curriculum. Okay, that's the external of the exam. Case study. Okay, internal assessment. Here we go. Okay, so we are now getting through a lot of this, right? A lot of this stuff is done. We have a product. Let's just jump up here. We're going to need that cover page. We've got a product now. We've got to do the video. The video must be a video of the product actually working. So that's on our to-do is right here, the product. That'll be in the next video I do with it because we now have a finished product. So product, develop a product that uses appropriate techniques, fully functional. So we got that with the video showing that it works. Documentation, right? So in addition to that, let's just take a quick look at the components of the solution for documentation. Record of tasks. There we go. Getting there, right? Appendices if we need them, right? So did we write up a section A? Do we have a section B? Yes. Do we have a record of tasks? Do we have a design overflow view? Yes, we do. Do we have developing the product? Okay, well, we have the product. Do we have the video? No. What's missing is our evaluation of it, right? The section E as well. So we're going to start the write-up for section E as well in the next video. So we've written up the section A. We've written up the section B. Section C is the product itself. That comes from the code in the video. Section D also comes from the video. Section E, the evaluation, right? Where we write that up. So I'll have more information in the next video for that. So in the next video, the goal will be to create a video of it running and to write up the evaluation and be done the internal assessment. That's what we want to do for that last part. That's what's coming up next. Have a great day, everybody.